Welcome to DMM Downloads. We are podcasting another conversation about DMM between Jeff Crabtree and me, Rudy Rivera. Jeff and I are teamed together in Northern Colorado in a ministry we call DMM NOCO. DMM NOCO is unleashing disciple-making movements in Northern Colorado, and we thought it a good idea to start a podcast as a way to bring awareness and resourcing to ordinary people who are passionate about making multiplying disciple makers in our natural networks. Thanks for joining us in this journey. We hope you get a DMM download from this conversation. So we're back again, recording part two, which we didn't plan for, but part two of our episode of what is it going to take to see movement in Northern Colorado. This is our DMM Downloads podcast for DMM NOCO. It's me, Rudy, again. I'm here with Jeff again.
Rudy.
Yes, we're here back in my living room. And we just realized in recording part one that this really needed to be a two-parter. So thanks for joining us again. Hopefully you're getting downloads as we're talking. And we're trying to bring awareness. We're trying to bring some resourcing to Northern Colorado, but really to us as well and to anyone listening. So we're glad you're here. We're going to jump right back into the topic of what is it going to take to see movement happen in Northern Colorado. I'm going to let Jeff take over again because we had some other things we wanted to add to that first list.
Yeah, thanks, Rudy. We were just talking. We hadn't planned to do a second one here, but as we were going along the line, we thought it might be helpful. And I guess I'd just like to say ahead of time that neither you or I are calling ourselves experts, or we got it all together. One of the things I think we both learned in the disciple-making movement world, we're lifelong learners.
Yeah. So
this is just you and I kind of chewing the fat, talking, sharing, brainstorming. But we talked about prayer, especially in the first episode, and you asked me if there were other things that came to my mind, and I did. I thought not only for myself, but I was in a discussion today with the pastors of this church that I've just joined as the disciple-making pastor, and the lead pastor said, all my life I've wanted to be missional or to reach the lost or find productive ways. And we just talked about what DMM has provided is a pathway to know how to do it. And so I would say, how are we going to see more movements catalyzed or launched in Northern Colorado? There's an element of training and equipping and coaching.
Yeah.
I was trained and equipped to know how to create an attractional model church to get more people in, to keep them in the building, to create programs, But I was never trained on how to step into lostness, how to get outside of the church door, how to get out of my front door, and to step into a lost world, except what? Four spiritual laws, EE, the old model of proclamation, which there was a season where that seemed to be more, it worked better. People were a little more open, but our generation is not what it was. I'm an old guy here, so thank God for podcasts. You can't see how old I am or how old I look.
We can put a camera on if you'd like.
Let's do that. What does this look like to be 66 years old? Or almost 66, I'm a month away. So anyway,
there you go.
But the point being was the culture's changed a lot. The old proclamation, let me see if I can lead you to Christ through proclamation, doesn't go over very big anymore. So how do we get trained and equipped and released to know how, with some tools in our toolbox, to know how to step into lostness? So if we're going to see movement catalyzed or advanced in Northern Colorado, I do think we need to lean into the prayer thing, lean into the heart of God thing, we said, but also to be trained and equipped and released on with some tools and some ideas how to step out into it. Jesus said go. So go, but if you don't have the necessary training and equipping, you might find yourself falling on your face and saying, I don't want to do that anymore. So does that make sense too, that maybe If we're going to see it launched here, we have to find people who want to be trained and equipped to know how to truly move the ball down the field in regard to the Great Commission or a new way to gospel that we've never known before.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say, in my upbringing, we were trained. We took what we called back in the day evangelism classes, and you were saying, you learn tools or methods of sharing the gospel proclamation. So in our case, the big one that we did was like the bridge diagram,
Sure.
and so you've mentioned a few others. In DMM, I've been telling people this. To me, one of the paradigm shifts has been more discovery, and I don't want to say opposed to, but in comparison or something to proclamation. It does seem like there's a place for proclamation, but also I love this idea of discovery, helping people discover Jesus, discover what the Bible says about Jesus, about the world, and I would say those are two different paradigms. They kind of,
Sure, absolutely.
yeah, and so to your point, one of the things is I've been talking about DMM, or for that matter, just church or life in God, with Christians in different states. As you know, I've been traveling. Like one of the things I keep running into is people saying two things. One, I've heard more often than I wish. I'm just an introvert and don't know how to even walk across the aisle in a restaurant to say hi to someone. So thus, the Great Commission is really, what you're really saying, is really for all extroverts, right? And I don't think Jesus said that, right?
Correct.
And then secondly, so that's kind of one dilemma. And then secondly, I do want to go and reach people, but I don't know how. And so that's kind of what you're talking to, the training or some tools that I think help people take practical steps to step into lostness.
Yeah, I really agree, Rudy. Made me think about last Wednesday. I was doing a training for some people on disciple-making movements, and we got to the place of learning how to engage a lost world, step into a lost world, interface a lost world. And a lady, she was actually a professor at the university here, and she made a comment, something to the effect like, well, I'm not so sure I'm called to that. And lovingly, I kind of stepped and pushed back a little bit. I said, I don't know if it's a calling as much as equipping. It's not that we're not called. Jesus said to all of us, go and make disciples. It's that we don't really know how to do that. We haven't been trained and equipped to have the confidence to step out of the church building or our front door or our office building or our office in the building and know how to do that. And so if it's going to be catalyzed or launched in northern Colorado, we've got to have some people who are interested to be trained. I still have the proclamation as a tool in my toolbox. If a need arises that I'm out talking with the lost world, engaging in the lost world, and I sense that that's the appropriate way, then I can pull it out and use it, if you will. But that's the only tool I ever used to have. Now I've got more of a movement toolbox to know how to create some relational equity, how to ask right questions, how to start spiritual conversations. So if it's going to happen, and then you use discovery, that might be another one, is what is discovery? But we're not going to invite people into discovery until we first have some kind of interaction with them to create a situation where we invite them into discovery.
Yeah, that's well said. Do you have any thoughts on, because you're saying something there that made me think of this, that is movement, this may sound like a weird question, is movement only for the expertly trained? So how much training is enough training? Jeff, do you have a thought on that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, when we talk about training, it's a little bit different than those of us went off to seminary or Bible college and got our certificate that we could put on the wall that said we were able to do the gospel ministry in a appropriate way. I think in the movement world, we talk a lot about one of the great obstacles or hurdles to see disciple-making movement happen or the Great Commission furthered is we have to address the situation in a Western context. It's not my job.
Yep.
Because we've almost inadvertently set up a professional mentality that the only people that could actually do ministry credibly or effectively or without creating heresy is you've got to go through Bible college, you've got to go through seminary, you've got to get your degree, or you've got to be trained in the local church with all kinds of Bible knowledge, again, to prevent heresy. Otherwise, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. And in movement, we try to raise up and equip people to know how to just engage a lost world and then to invite them into what we call the discovery process. And again, we're going to need to do a DMM download on discovery. But the Great Commission wasn't given to the professional. If you look at the 12, and then they were to go and spread this to the entire world, there's no way. So the early church model, or the model that Jesus modeled for us and gave to the early church, doesn't. And we're not against training. We're not against professional training. We're just training them in a different way to engage with lost people. Most of us don't know how to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Because I think what I wouldn't want to support or promote at that, I guess, is you just have to have it all together. It just doesn't seem Jesus doesn't seem to work that way. You read the scriptures, they didn't seem to work that way. Granted, those 12 were discipled and they were learning from the master, but so too, that's similar to DMM. I think we're saying you can learn how to do these things from the master. The Spirit will teach you. Yeah. We can help training, but then it's a matter of taking that step of faith, getting out into lostness and doing it. Being a practitioner is maybe
being a practitioner.
Right.
I can just think back into my own world with this, Rudy. The training and the equipping, what it gave me was confidence. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just so much knowledge. It was confidence that I had something to go out there with. Yeah. And so, again, like you said, we don't want people to believe they have to go through so much training that they're so professionally trained. But I do think without training, people probably won't go out because they don't have the confidence, because they don't really know they don't know how to engage with a lost, broken world that maybe is a bit cynical or skeptical against Christians or the church. So how would they answer those questions? And so we're not trying to really equip them to know how to answer those questions. We're really asking people, like what we do is we try to help them learn how to ask good questions of a non-Christian. What do you ask them? And what's a follow-up question? And then what's another follow-up question? So we train them to engage in relational settings that give them confidence to know that they'll be okay. Yeah. And then once they do, it actually gives them a confidence to go, I want to do that again. I want to do that again. I want to engage with people who don't know him because I'm gaining confidence on how to do it.
Yeah, that's well said too. So as we're kind of wrapping up here for this part 2 of this episode, do you have any other thoughts? What's it going to take to see movement happen in northern Colorado?
Well, I'm sure there's an endless list, but I think we've kind of done that as we've leaned into, we have to get captured by the heart of God. We've got to, if you will, repent and get aligned. And we know that we can't do this supernatural ministry without new rhythms of different kinds of prayer, like we call movement prayer, and then being trained and equipped to be sent and to go out and engage the world. And we're probably going to learn a whole lot more as we do it, Rudy, but those are good starting points, I think, to see movements catalyzed or launched in northern Colorado or even beyond. Wherever someone's listening here, they might want to say, tell us more.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that last part, because even though this podcast is DMM downloads, we're really looking at northern Colorado. That's where we live. That's where we're passionate about. But really, obviously, this is on the internet, so people are going to listen anywhere they are. If you're out there and you're listening and you're interested in seeing movement in your context, get in touch with us, because I think
Absolutely.
we can try to help in some way, form, or fashion, or at least converse. But I think this is a good place to kind of end this episode. But
Thanks, Rudy.
thanks, Jeff, for sharing those thoughts. And like you said, I think as we're practicing and living into this, we might have more.
We'll keep learning more.
Yeah, we'll keep learning more. We'll see you next time. Thanks, Jeff, for that engaging download. In DMM, we like to say that disciples are learners. I know I'm learning a lot from my conversations with you, Jeff. From all of us in DMM NOCO, we hope you got a DMM download from the conversation today. Don't forget to leave this podcast a review wherever you are listening online. If you found this conversation helpful, please head over to our site, dmmnoco.com, where you can find more content for your DMM journey, including a self-paced Habits of a Multiplying Disciple course. The course is designed to give you practical next steps to becoming a DMM practitioner and multiplying disciple maker. You can take that course for free at dmmnoco.com. We will be back next week with another engaging DMM download episode. Until then, may you hear from God through His Spirit and take simple steps of obedience in what you hear.